give you a little bit of intro. The book is called Short for Chameleon, and it's, I was inspired to write this book when I was in a dentist's office or something. I picked up a magazine and I read that in Japan there are rent-a-relative agencies. So if, for instance, you want to have a new friend over for dinner and your father talks too much and maybe your brother smells funny, or you know, your mother's a goofball or whatever, you can send them out and rent people to be imposters for your family. And apparently they actually have them in Japan. So I thought this was a great idea for a middle grade young adult book. And the book is about a boy named Cam. His father runs Almost Family rental agency. And where I'm going to start off is Cam and his best friend Suraj are home alone. They're both kind of skinny 15-year-olds. They've been making too much noise. There's a knock at the door. They just had a food fight. So Cam thinks it's the downstairs lady, neighbor calling to complain. So he opens the door, and this is what he sees. A girl, about 16, short silver hair, black framed glasses, and a nose ring, said, "Is this Almost Family rental agency?" I stared back blankly. She stepped back to look at the street number, then checked the scrunched up business card in her hand. "Is this 5508 Roby Street?" "Yep, that's the right address." Suraj had materialized beside me. He managed to sound remarkably professional, despite the noodles festooning his head. "May I help you?" She put a hand on her hip. I thought she was going to up and leave, but she went, "Yeah, I'd like to rent a brother." She took a noodle off Suraj's ear and stepped past us into the apartment. We bugged our eyes out at each other and mouthed several versions of, "What do we do now?" To the best of my knowledge, Lynette whatchamacallit, that's the neighbor downstairs, was the only female ever to acknowledge our presence. Suraj gave a panicky shrug, then followed the girl inside. I checked my armpits, then went inside too. She was standing in the middle of the room, looking around as if she was trying to choose a new paint color or figure out where the smell was coming from. Suraj beetled in front of her and swept some crumbs off the futon onto the floor. "Sit, please sit," he said. "Excuse the mess, we were developing some team building exercises for one of our clients." She found a dry, relatively stain-free spot and sat. I perched on one arm of the only chair we have. Suraj perched on the other. We must have looked like hosts for a preschool program about to launch into some ditty about the difference between left and right. I was sorry there wasn't a manlier option, but my leg was jiggling too much to stand. Suraj said, "May I ask how you heard about Almost Family?" I didn't. Her voice was sort of husky. "Then how did you find us?" Suraj asked. "Why do you need to know?" she said. No reason," he said. "Just like market research or whatever. Perhaps you could start by giving us your name?" "Raylene," she said. "And how do you spell that?" She sighed like, "What's with all the questions?" "Whatever's easy," she said. "And your last name?" he asked. She sighed again. "Let's just say Butler, shall we?" "So how do I pick a brother? Got a website or something?" "No," Suraj said, "no website. You just tell us what you need and we'll match your requirements." He didn't say, "as long as you're looking for someone just like Cam." Dad had a few old acting buddies on the roster, but I was the only teenage male we had on offer at the moment. That's why I was somewhat surprised when Suraj went on to say, "Can you tell us what you're looking for exactly? Height, weight, hair color?" "I'm not picky," she said. "And what will you require for him?" Suraj said. "A business event, family gathering, TV engagement?" Raylene stood up. On second thought, forget it. I wasn't expecting the third degree. She was at the door in a flash. The door could be hard to open if you didn't know the trick. Raylene was yanking at it as if she were the next victim in Saw 5. The latch gave way. She staggered back. She was going to leave forever. "I can be your brother," I said. She turned and looked at me. Her eyes were brown, but there was a green stripe in the right one. "You talk," she said. "Yeah, sometimes, when I get a chance." She almost smiled, although I could tell she didn't mean to. Surge said, "Or if you prefer something slightly more exotic, I'm also available." Raylene didn't respond. For a while there, she looked like she had a sore tooth, but maybe she was just considering the options. Finally, she said, "Yeah, okay." She wrote my cell phone number on her hand and said she'd be in touch. I controlled myself until I saw her disappear around the corner of Roby and Bliss. Then I jumped and squealed as if I'd just been crowned Miss World. So that's a little bit